welcome to Behind the Code, brought to you by Atomic Build. My name's Amit, and today we have Caitlin, the CMO of Blazel, joining us. I'm super excited. Caitlin, if you don't mind giving us an intro about yourself.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I'm Caitlin, CMO at Blazel. I'm a marketing generalist, but really a content marketer at heart. So what that means is I love storytelling. I've always used content as a way to grow companies. So the first company I worked at, I grew the YouTube channel to 120 million views. I went on to found my own startup where again I used content to drive tons of organic inbound. So I was generating hundreds of thousands of website visits through articles. And now the content that I'm focused on predominantly is LinkedIn. And how do you create LinkedIn content to, again, drive awareness for your company, pipeline, build trust at scale, kind of all those great things.
Amazing. Just before I get into my first question, I want to congratulate you on your campaign to get Ember as the name for Blazel's AI agent. That's awesome. That was a very well constructed campaign, and you ran it pretty clean. So congrats.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we do lots of fun joke type stuff on LinkedIn. So I feel like there's a lot of people that are on like the inside jokes that we pull, and we try to keep it fun and kind of lighthearted.
Yeah, it's very refreshing because LinkedIn can become a bit boring and dry. So I appreciate that quite a bit.
The funny thing though, so for those people who didn't know, we're trying to figure out what to call our GTM agent. And our CEO and I had differing opinions about what the name should be. And so we did like a funny parody office style skit on what to name our agent and kind of documented it. But all of the content we create, usually there's some kernel of truth to what's happening there. And I think that's part of what makes the story funny and interesting for people is like they could actually see a CMO and a CEO fighting over the name of a GTM agent.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the lens in which every person sees the world is so different. And I think at least typically the CMO is looked at as someone who has like the oracle of creativity. So, I mean, and then the CEO, of course, has an internal passion of what everything should be put and named. Yeah.
Right.
So Caitlin, you've had this really great career across consumer products, building a marketplace, you've led corporate strategy across different organizations. What is one truth about marketing that kept repeating itself out of all those experiences you had?
I think marketing is not about tricking people into taking some action or decision. Great marketing just reinforces when you have a really good product. And so it's about, like, in my mind, marketing is about being able to build awareness and show off that you have this incredible asset, service, product that people can take advantage of, but they don't know about. It's not about tricking people to make some decision or tricking people to do something that's not in their best interest. It's about aligning great products with audience.
Right, so the marketing is extracted from the product, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could have the best marketing in the world, and if you have a crappy product, it didn't do you any good. It has to start with, I think the magic synergy here is, I think, incredible product, incredible marketing, and within incredible marketing, I look at, do you have distribution? Can you reach new people? And do you have a strong brand? When you reach people, can you build trust? Can you connect with them? Can you build relationships with them? If you have all that and you have a great product, then like that's the winning combo in my book.
Right. And do you think now, like in today's, not just today, but for a while now, do you think distribution has been the determining factor if like companies actually break through?
So if we looked, like my answer has shifted over time. If you had asked me that question in 2020, I would have said, no, distribution is not the core moat. I think at that point in time, tech moats were still huge advantages companies could hold. And what's happened in the age of AI is those tech moats have compressed. And instead of, you build, you ship some new feature, you ship some new product, you used to have a tech moat that was sustainable over 18 months or 2 years or 5 years or whatever it would take for competitors to kind of replicate or kind of reverse engineer things that you had done. And in the age of AI, all of that has become incredibly compressed. Now I think of tech moats in weeks or months, which is not a durable, long-lasting moat. And so then you say, okay, let's imagine that we're getting to this place of feature parity, price parity, where you have all these different competitors that do relatively the same thing. They work relatively the same way. They're priced in the same kind of price tiering. then how do you make decisions, right? Then that's where distribution and brand really shine. And so I think, maybe this is a very self-serving view, but I feel like marketers are having their moment now, right? Where companies are starting to see the value of having and investing in a brand. And again, I have never had big budgets. I have always been a really scrappy marketer that's needed to show the ROI on everything I've done. And so I never thought I would be in this place where I was saying like, brand is important, brand is important. I was always like, show me the numbers. Like, I want to see ROI. But I am completely brought in now that brand is so critical in 2026. Right. And I would not have said that in 2020.
Right. And back to something you said, do you think the distinction is because AI has an ability to make everything seem exactly the same? So like adding in, like you said, marketing's having its moment. It's a judgment layer, a creativity layer that you put up front. Is that like one of the core ways you look at it?
Absolutely. I think that it allows everyone to kind of rise to the mean, and it's kind of created this sea of sameness. And that opens up, and people might lament that. I think it's freaking fantastic, because it means that if you're smart and you're strategic and you're creative, you are going to stand out. Like, I think that is part of why our LinkedIn content resonates so much with people, and like the stories we're putting out resonate so much with people, is because we're doing like wacky, weird things. Yeah. We're like buying billboards in Wichita, Kansas. We're getting evicted out of our co-working space. We're arguing about what we name our GTM agent online publicly. Like, we're doing all these kind of crazy things, and it's all just an attention play. It's a distribution play. It's a brand building play. And people really love it. Like, my goal as a marketer is I want people to have a strong opinion about what we're doing. I almost don't care if they have a strong opinion about whether it's good or bad. Like, I hope that they love it. And I think most people do. But I have had at least 4 people online tell me that I should be fired. Like, public rant about how chaotic I am, how disjointed, how horribly unprofessional I am, all these things. And I look at those messages where they like are slandering me online, and I go, great, I have elicited a very passionate, strong response out of a complete stranger. Mm-hmm. And so I think the worst thing that could ever happen to you as a marketer is you do something and just no one cares. There's no reaction to what you're doing. And with a lot of the content that I see put out on AI, that's what the output is like people put out this stuff and there's just no reaction. It's just crickets. And so the opportunity is, how do you stand out in all of that? How do you stand out when content has become commoditized, when it's never easier to publish kind of mediocre things? Right. That's the company's strategic advantage.
Right. Do you think people are lured in by like the ease of creating something generic? Like this, it feels very safe. Do you think that's why we see so much of it being posted so frequently?
Yeah, so I saw some statistic. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like there's 10 million more people posting this quarter than there were at the beginning of the year. And that's AI content. And I think we've surpassed on the internet the place where there's actually more AI content being created than human content being created.
Right.
And so, yeah, people are just, it's so easy to, and we probably have all experienced this. Like I have had, and I saw someone complaining about this on LinkedIn this week, where they were saying, I think we're going to have to put guardrails around AI slop internally, like in internal communications within companies, because we've all had direct reports that have sent us like pages and pages of AI output. And so I've had to tell all of our employees, we literally create AI content for LinkedIn. Like that is our core moat. We don't do AI slop. I don't want anyone shipping AI slop internal to the company, period. Like you have to put thought and intention behind what you're doing, even in your internal employee communications, because I won't read a 10-page AI slop generated report. And so to answer your question in a roundabout way, yeah, I think it's become very easy to create content. I think, anyone has a ChatGPT or Claude account, but I think that there's real reputational damage to putting out bad content.
AI slop or otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
And how long was the response from those guardrails internally to when your team bounced back? Like, did communication drop off, like the 10-page?
No, it was more, I mean, we're still a relatively small team, right? So it's pretty easy to say like, hey guys, like this isn't the format in which we're going to consume information. you're putting a huge burden on your coworkers by asking them to consume all of this when this could have been, a couple line email or a quick 30-second, Slack huddle or something like that. We don't need to send crazy long communication memos that are all AI generated internally.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. On that topic, just this is more outbound on LinkedIn. A lot of companies, they still have it as the founder's responsibility to generate content, to write, or corporate marketing. But from what I've seen with Blazel and just your general approach, there's what do you think is wrong with that model of just the founder being the only representative?
There's nothing wrong with that model. It just comes down to the founder, right? Right. So we work with lots of companies where it's still early stage and the founders, it doesn't matter what stage you're at, actually. You could have Fortune 500 companies where the founders want to own and have their own voice, and you could go all the way down to single person startups, and they feel very strongly and their image is important to them and they want to control that. So I'm not sure that it's a stage thing so much as people just have different preferences. We work with marketing teams that are, there's a head of content or a head of social or something like that, and that person is managing the LinkedIn content for, all of C-suite, all the way down to an individual solo founder that's like, okay, I understand that this is important. I want to build in public. I want to get my name and company out there. I don't want to spend $10K on Google Ads or Meta every month to get there. I'm going to commit to cracking LinkedIn and making this a channel for myself. So we see the full range of folks.
Do you think having multiple credible individuals from your company, assuming you're more than a team of 2 or 3, it has a big impact on a company?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's just more reach, more eyeballs, more opportunity to take up space in the conversation. But on the other, the strategy that I'm really into is, and this is one of the things we're doing, one of our larger clients at Blazel, they have 6 executives that are all posting. Mm-hmm. And each one of those executives has a different goal with their LinkedIn content. So for example, if you were setting this up, you could say, okay, we're eyeing a series fundraising, series B raise, for example. And as the CEO, I'm talking to potential investors. And that's the kind of content I'm putting out there on LinkedIn. My CTO is focused on, engineers as an ideal customer persona. And so they're putting out content that engineers. But we also have a subset of our customers that are project managers. And so we want to talk to project managers. And this person internal to the company is going to focus on project managers. So you could actually align it where LinkedIn works best if you're talking to kind of a single persona type, right? And so within my content, I talk to CMOs and marketing people. Zane, our CEO, he tends to talk to more of the founders, CEOs, kind of VC crowd. And we have AEs on the team that have different strategies and are talking about different facets. And so we have this very wide coverage of all these different types of people that are ultimately impactful to our business. And each one of the profiles can tap and talk to that different subset. So I think it's a really powerful strategy. It's also, you want to be able to build momentum and excitement around what you're doing, right? And so if you're if your company is popping up everywhere in the feed and people keep seeing the content, you can create this buzz and momentum and feeling behind what you're doing that's really hard to replicate with paid ads or in-person events. But how do you scale that, and how are you at in-person events every week? And I find LinkedIn is just such a lower lift to kind of get that awareness and hype around the company.
Right, and it's pretty high on people's scroll list, right, on their phone. I think morning, midday, evening. So that makes a lot of sense. So one of the lessons, would you say, is direct your content to one or two personas, not a whole bunch.
Don't try to write to everyone. Here's some tips. Is here's what I tell our clients. I say, okay, I want you to imagine your ideal customer in your head right now, and picture that person, picture what that person looks like, visualize them. Don't just say CMOs at Series B companies. Actually pick a specific person and imagine that person in your mind. And now I want you to imagine that they've gone to your LinkedIn profile and they've read 2 months worth of your content. What is it that you would want them to understand about you, about your company, about how you think strategically about things, and use that as the foundation for your content strategy? And when you're writing your post, Imagine that person in your head and say, is what I'm writing good enough for this person to think like, yes, this Caitlin clearly gets it, right? And if you do that, the bar for your content will just be so much higher. You're going to avoid some of that like AI slop, but you're also going to, like, the other thing I see people make mistake of is they post a lot of so what content. It's like, I read a post and I go, so what? Like, why should I care? My first manager absolutely beat this concept into me that's like, what's in it for me? Like, why do I care about what you have to say? And that's always stuck with me. And so another kind of pro tip here is you can think about your content as needing to do one of four things at a minimum. Is you either want to educate, you want to entertain, you want to persuade, or you want to inspire. And if your content can do at least one of those things, you're going to avoid the so what, this was a waste of my time post category, which is, I see 80% of LinkedIn content fall into that bucket.
Right. And I guess it's also difficult because no one's actually saying so what. It's just like in some of the, maybe like the analytics you can
Crickets.
your post. Yeah, totally.
Crickets are saying, so what? This is the amazing thing about LinkedIn is that you get real, like, this is a real sandbox you get to play in. You get real-time feedback on whether your messaging lands or not, whether people are interested in the things you have to say. You either have a post pop off or you don't. And so many people like to blame the algorithm. It's the algorithm of my reach is down. It's like, or you just had a crappy post. Like, yes, there are way more people posting on LinkedIn than there were 2 years ago. Like, yes, it is harder to be seen and to have distribution. Like, that's the game everyone is fighting and playing in. Like, don't whine about the game. Like, adapt your strategy, right? Like, I have had posts that have, like, my best post had over 700, I'm almost at 800,000 impressions on that particular post. And then I have other posts that do, you know, if I have a 5,000 impression post, I go, wow, that wasn't a good hook. I didn't pick that topic right. Like, it's on me, right? It's not on anyone else.
Yeah. And I think, like, it's also relative. Like, someone posting, like, getting to 5,000 is a climbing accomplishment. So I think that's also something, as someone who posts as well, you have to also be okay with that as that's part of the journey. Like you said, like, that's the game we're in.
100%. And this is where I think, you know, the big influencers, they're sharing their stats, they're showing all these huge numbers, and people are going, man, why didn't I hit that? Like, why don't I have 10,000 followers? Why don't I have 50,000 followers? Like, why did my post, for some people, getting 1,000 impression reach is a great post. There's absolutely no shame in that. In fact, here's an example, and this is why vanity metrics are actually really stupid. I had a post where I was kind of breaking down professional CEO profiles on LinkedIn and how most of them were not optimized. If you think of a LinkedIn post as kind of like a mini landing page for your company, and most of the people do a bad job setting up those landing pages. And it's kind of akin to if you had a website and you didn't have some kind of lead capture or ability to schedule a demo or a lead magnet or something. Like, you wouldn't send traffic to a website that wasn't set up yet, but people put all this effort into content, and then people come to check out their profile, and their profile is not set up properly. So I had a post about that, about like, hey, this is so silly that people are doing this and they're leaving all this on the table and they're not. And I think the post had 14 likes, and God, I don't even know the impression. I'm sure sub 1,000 impressions.
Right.
And I had the CEO of a company that had raised over $300 million send me a DM saying, hey, can you audit my profile?
Nice. Yeah.
That's wonderful, right? Like, that's the outcome that I would want. Now I have this direct communication. If I had just sent that guy a message and said, hey, I can audit your LinkedIn profile, he said, like, he wouldn't have even responded, right? So you look at the public metrics and you go, oh man, like, that post looks kind of embarrassing and didn't really get much attention. But you also have to judge things by the outcomes. And so don't compare yourself to other people. It doesn't matter what kind of impressions other people are posting. It's about the results that your content is driving for yourself.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. And in terms, so that seems like a really strong signal. Someone reached out and said, can you directly help me with the thing you posted about? What are other signals in content that tells you you're actually influencing the right set of buyers or people that you want to go after as someone on LinkedIn?
It's a great question. I have a few ways I would answer that. One is just anecdotally. I hear from people a lot, like, oh, I loved this post, or, oh, you guys, or they hear in the comments, they're following the story. Like we just started the podcast and you said, oh, that GTM agent thing was so great. You were clearly following the story. That's a signal that I'm internalizing and I'm paying attention to, right? And I'm saying like, okay, that's how I got on this podcast. That's how you heard about me. That's how we got connected. That's how we built a relationship, right? So like check one for content. I think the other thing is if you're doing some kind of outbounding, you could benchmark, what percentage of connection requests are accepting before you're starting to post versus what percentage are accepting now. Like, are you seeing an increase in acceptance rates of connections just because people are seeing your content and they're liking what you're putting out there and you have a certain layer of trust and credibility to you? If someone sends a connection request and you don't know the person, but they seem kind of legitimate, you'll click over to the profile and you'll be like, what do I think of this person? Are they worth connecting with, right? We all make those like internal judgments in 2 seconds. Your content can help influence that. I think the other thing is, one of my favorite things to recommend to people that I think so few people do is you need to outbound on the signal that your content is generating, or have one of your AEs, depending on the size of the company, outbound on that signal. So like, I love looking at people that viewed my profile, because a lot of times the executives that we work with, they're not going to be in the public comments. They're not going to be commenting on lead magnets, whatever, but they're going to go check out your profile. And so if I look at the people that are viewing my profile, a lot of it is the people I'm targeting. CMOs, heads of content, heads of marketing, whatever. That tells me that my content is reaching the right people. And then when I reach out to those people, I'll get messages like, oh my gosh, I saw that post that you did about blah, blah, blah. Like it creates an environment in which it's very easy to open up conversations. And if you can open up conversations, you can get people into demos.
Right. So it's not like a linear path. You're looking at multiple signals simultaneously, and some, like you said, the anecdotal one is not one of the measurements that LinkedIn offers, but it's a very strong one.
It's super important. I mean, we had our CEO go to, he's in a lot of kind of like exited founder groups. And he went to one of these networking events the other night, and there were a handful of people that he connected with and chatted with that were like, oh my gosh, we follow your LinkedIn content. And to me, that's amazing, because you want to talk about vanity metrics. We get like sub 1,000 visits to our website every month. Like, we have almost no website traffic. The website is relatively new domain for us. We haven't invested in AEO or SEO or kind of all these, like, we've got a bare bones landing page. And so the fact that we're kind of this brand new, relatively new startup, 1 year old, don't get really any website traffic. We're not paying for paid. Like, LinkedIn is the channel for us. And when we go to networking events and we meet people that have heard of us and know of us because of the LinkedIn content, that's another like anecdotal check mark I'm putting in my brain.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, they instantly have no one's gonna remember like a bullet point on your website when you first meet them. So that's a really powerful like message when it comes to content creation. Now with Blazel, there's a lot of tools out there, including, like you mentioned, ChatGPT, Claude. You can use it to try to create AI content, but how do you create it like where it's a genuine marketing system instead of a writing assistant? Like, how did you figure that formula out? And don't tell me the trade secret, of course, but just high level.
I'm going to tell you all the trade secrets. It's still a work in progress. I mean, we're constantly improving and iterating on the app every single day. We've spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars at this point, of fine-tuning LLMs to remove AI slop, to make sure that it doesn't sound like it's not X, it's Y. Everyone's quietly compounding their blah, blah, blah. It's fluffy. Like all the words and things that like just tell you AI wrote this. We have spent so many marketing or engineering resources trying to extract all of that out of the content we create. We are running AI evals on multiple models every week, testing. We pay attention to, we actually surface of every post we create for clients. We create 3 versions of that post, and we pay attention to which version our clients are choosing, and each version is being created by a different LLM, and the content engine that's creating that is kind of created in a slightly different way. So one post would be, we would look at how, Amit, you show up online and how you sound, and that post is going to be most in your voice. And then another pipeline we're looking at is viral formats on LinkedIn and what's worked. And we're actually going to create the post mimicking one of those viral formats. And then the third way, we'd have a different strategy behind it. And we pay attention to how all of these things are coming together, what people are choosing, and try to kind of create this reinforcement loop. So it's a never-ending process of improvement. We're always working on it. And, I think that's the big differentiator of kind of what sets us apart from Claude or ChatGPT in terms of the content quality.
Right.
The other piece is that we have access to a lot of data that Claude or ChatGPT doesn't have. And so you can query within our system and say, tell me about my LinkedIn post performance, like what's working, what's not working, we surface leads within the platform, right? And so what I learned early on is that posting content is not enough to generate pipeline.
Right.
Is that if you really want to generate outcomes, you have to have a strategy that goes beyond just, I'm going to post consistently twice a week. You or someone on your team has to look at what is the signal that's being generated by that content and how can I outreach to that signal. And so we've built all of that into the platform where we have CRM connections and integrations. We can enrich data that's coming through your LinkedIn content. We can push that to your CRM. You can outbound off that content. And so I think the system is much more powerful than kind of what you would get out of the box with Claude or ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, I mean, just what you articulated, it sounds like it. How has it impacted you personally, just like from where it started and where you are today, just using it as a user and someone also positioning it out
Well, I'll share, I think this is probably something that anyone in startup land can relate to.
Yeah.
We started as an AI native agency. And so we had our own AI that we had built as an internal tool. We paired that with kind of journalists and content writers, and we charged $3,500 a seat to write for people. And we'd interview them once a month and put their content together, and we kind of came up with their strategy and whatnot. And that model had message market fit, as in we grew very quickly. We took the company to, it was, I don't know, I think in 8 months we were above 1.5 million ARR. But it became clear that we didn't have, like, to the point that I just made earlier about how it's not enough to just post. You have to be able to do these other things. We weren't surfacing these other things that people needed to do. And so people weren't seeing the outcomes that we wanted them to see, that we knew were possible for them to see. And so we took our model back down to zero and we've rebuilt it from the ground up. And now instead of charging $3,500 for the service, we charge $200 for the service. And I think we're giving 10x the value. And so there has been a lot of lessons learned along the way on what the right strategic formula is, how content and sales kind of pair together, how to make sure you have the right attributions, how all that connects into your CRM, kind of all these different pieces that go together. And like I said, it's ever evolving. Like we're always shipping new stuff. We're dog fooding our own product. And so I'm in the app every day, looking at it, testing it, playing with things, and trying to have fun with it. I think people put a lot of pressure on themselves, like, okay, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna make LinkedIn work, and they're like white knuckling it, like trying to get their posts, like, yeah, let it flow a bit, like have fun. Don't put so much, don't let everything feel like it needs to hang in the balance. If you have a bad LinkedIn post, it happens to everyone. It's okay. It doesn't have to be so much writing on everything.
Do you think part of that is that just like like you said earlier in the conversation, we watch what's working with other people, and the assumption is that we can somehow create a formula to then do it ourselves and then brute force it, and then when it doesn't work, there you go into this like hole almost, and it's hard to get out of it. I mean, I've experienced this myself, so I'm speaking from some firsthand experience. Have you observed that with just like your previous model with the agency and now like distributing it more broadly? Like, is that continuation with your users? Like, do they?
Yeah. What is it? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And never has it been so easy to compare ourselves, on these social platforms, right? Whether it's Instagram and you're comparing your life to someone else's life, that they have a more perfect house and a more perfect backyard and a more perfect husband, and or LinkedIn, right? They're getting bigger reach than I am. They're kind of doing. The reality is that lots of things work on LinkedIn, and what we're trying to do is allow people to run experiments and make it easy for them to create content consistently. and then to track the results of what's working for them and just kind of reinforce that. And, it's funny, like, so I'll give another example of this about how it's just hard to take someone else's playbook and apply it to you. So Zane, our CEO, he has over 40,000 followers on LinkedIn, and he has incredible content. His content, always has tons of engagement, lots of impressions. He talks a lot about AI, about kind of VCs, investments, things that are happening in that ecosystem. And that's his kind of bread and butter style posts. When I talk about AI, and I think there's lots of interesting things to talk about AI in the context of marketing, my AI style posts tend to perform very poorly. It's not a topic that my audience is very interested in. They would much rather hear a funny story or an anecdote or me wax poetic in some self-deprecating way about motherhood. Like, that is more what they're tuned into. And the reverse, when Zane tries to wade into kind of my territory and talk about things in the way I talk about them, his content doesn't perform very well. And so, the strategy is being able to set up a content strategy for each individual seat within an organization and recognize that everyone's going to have different, they're going to have different strengths. They're going to have different audiences. They're going to want to talk about different topics. Like, that's a benefit, but it's hard for people to crack that on their own.
Right. That's why, this is why your product exists to some level, right? Like, to get that. A tool is a tool until you know how to point it at what you actually want to accomplish. And I think some of that gets lost with the catch-alls. Like, I've seen products out there that say, type in one sentence and everything else happens, which is simply not possible. And I think what I appreciated about Blazel and how you're doing it is it takes time to curate the voice. Like, if you haven't established one yet, it takes time. And I think that's something that's important for users to commit to some batch of time.
Yeah, 100%. You got to make a commitment to it. But we're also trying to make this really easy at the same time. Like, right. We're ingesting a ton of data on our clients. And so we have data rooms that each individual client sets up. Then we have over 20,000 news publications that we subscribe to. And each individual person gets to choose which news publications they want to prioritize and what topics they care to talk about. So we're constantly bringing in like trending breaking news, and we surface angles for each article. So if you see an article you like, you can say like, oh, here's three different angles. I can just choose the angle I want and jump on a voice interview, and the post writes itself. We proactively send posts to our clients based off of trending news, what's in their data room, interviews we've done in the past. We ingest their AI notes, podcasts, blogs, articles they're writing, like all of this stuff. So like, yes, you need to be consistent. Like, yes, you need to commit to it, but how can we make this as low of a cognitive lift for people as possible, I think is probably where that sweet spot sits.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think like that's a way to bring them in the door and keep them there. I think all the tooling you've put around it is really powerful. Just switching gears for a moment, I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, I just want to do a little bit of rapid fire personal close. So first question I had for you is, which business leader do you kind of emulate, borrow from, just get inspiration from? It doesn't have to be in your domain.
Gosh, there's so many people that I'm taking notes from. I really like what the marketing team at Gamma is doing. Okay, they're taking big, bold, creative swings. I'm a huge fan of the marketing team at Air, AIR. They're doing kind of these crazy, outlandish videos, and the way they're building brand is just incredible. Who are some of my other favorites? I mean, I have a lot of different people I follow on LinkedIn. I think Peter, the CEO at DataBox, does a really good job of kind of distilling kind of AI data oriented topics into like interesting clips. Peter Walker at Carta has done an amazing job of taking what I would consider a very boring category of like equity cap table management, and they have all this proprietary data that then they're sharing and making it into a story. They're making it really interesting. I think a lot of companies could learn from them. Also learned a lot from Zane and just following him, and I think he does an incredible job of putting out content. He's so consistent with it, even though he's got so much going on and managing the company and kind of all these things. And so yeah, there's tons of people out there that I save their posts and I look at the things they're doing and I take inspiration from them.
Nice. Just to follow up from that, I found you through Zane's post, and like a common thread I saw between both of you is that you have like very strong comedic sensibility, like professional comedic sensibility. So I was just wondering, like, where does that come from? Is there like a source, a writer, a show, a comedian that you just kind of say, oh, that's really like stuck inside your mind?
That happens because we have a very strong working relationship. And so the reason why Zane and I are able to rib each other and make fun of each other online publicly, which is something that most people are not used to seeing, is because we work really well together. And I think there's a healthy base level of trust between the two of us. And we are able to play up, like when I say there's kernels of truth to things, right? The kernel of truth to this is that CEOs are often feeling like marketing is spending too much money, or that marketing can't attribute the spend to something. And CMOs feel like they're not appreciated, they're wearing 1,000 hats, they're doing all these things, and that sometimes just attribution isn't possible. And there's this like tension or friction between like CMOs and CEOs, right? And so we're playing off of that feeling that feels very relatable to a lot of people, and we kind of take these personas and we amplify them to almost a point of absurdity, and then we do it in public, right? And it just kind of started to happen naturally, and then we saw it worked, and we just kept kind of feeding the flames, you know? And so people will do things like say like, oh, you deserve a raise, and I'll be like, great, CC my boss, and I'll, you know, like tag Zane in it, right? And we'll like do these like funny interplays. And I think again, because it's kind of taboo or different or unexpected, it gets a lot of attention.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're doing what people probably do in little moments in their office or their wherever their working situation is, but it's never captured or kind of scaled up. So there's an amount of bravery that you both have kind of just built in. So I really admire that.
Thank you. I think that there was someone on the TLDR team, the AI note taker, Renee, that I interviewed at one point, and I said like, how should people be funny? Like, how does it work? And she said, you just have to be really perceptive. And I think that is actually a skill, is that if you can just pay attention to the moments that are happening in your day, of the things that excite you, anger you, make you feel strongly about something, you can start to kind of understand like what kind of content will people relate to? What kinds of videos should you put out? Like what's going to really resonate with your customers? Like you just really, like, I think perception is actually a really key skill in all of this.
I think having so much inbound noise and content, it sometimes blocks your perception of things. So I think sometimes there's that like when you're eating sushi, you have a palate reset, right? I think sometimes people have to do palate resets as professionals in the knowledge economy. Like for me, I take walks or try to read like a physical book.
Yeah.
And on that note, just before I wanted to ask you, what helps you reset when you're not building Blazel? Like, what do you do to help yourself reset?
I love doing like camping and hiking trips. Like nice. Even if short little weekend aways, I have very low self-control. And so if I'm at home, I will find a way onto Slack, or I will find my way onto LinkedIn, or I'll read emails, or I'll whatever. And so I almost have to enforce like hard resets for myself where I just get away, even if it's for 48 hours, to just go camping with my kids, you know, get out of my house, get into a new environment where like my brain is just stimulated in a different way.
And it must always help when you come back online.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. You know, and you know, like I have small children. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. You know, these are really formative years for them, and so it's hard. It's hard being a parent and trying to do intense job stuff at the same time. And
yeah.
So I think we as a family just really value that time together and that time away.
That's phenomenal. We're going to wrap right there, Caitlin. Thank you so much.
Behind the goal.